have a bit of preamble about this. And this is what I'm going to do is tell a story. And this is a story that happened to me a few years ago, and I've been meaning to work it into a talk, and I just have not. I've had a couple of stumbling points with it that have allowed me to progress. And when Rosalind sent the email out and said, does anybody have something they can kind of bring to the table? So I thought I would just tell you the story, as I've told it to a few people over the years. And I'm hoping that doing this will help me get past some of my stumbling points that have prevented me from making it a proper talk. So that is what you're about to hear. So this is totally unpracticed in all ways and forms and shapes. In 2006, I was hired at the university as technology director of the research center. And, hi Jasmine.
Hi.
In 2007, I was invited to teach a class at the university. Now, that was a surprise. It kind of came out of left field. I thought it would be very interesting, so I immediately jumped at the opportunity and said, absolutely, I'll teach a class. The problem is I'm not trained to teach classes or do anything. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And when the time came and the class began, I looked every bit like the stereotypical first-year teacher. Rushing to class with a stack of books in my arms and folders with papers kind of flying everywhere, always looking 6 minutes late whenever you saw me. I was a train wreck, and I was just frazzled, and I was sweating all the time because it was September and hot in St. Louis, and I'm not accustomed to St. Louis. Now, when I taught, I would teach 2 sections, which meant I taught for 2 hours, and when I got down in this dungeon of a room I taught in, I was stuck there. On the way to class, there was Whispers Cafe, which was a coffee thing we're working on now, and I would stop there to get ice. And I needed ice because I would bring this coffee with me, this Vietnamese coffee, Cafe Suda. I would bring an Nalgene, and then I would get this cup of ice and I would pour the coffee on it. It would help get me through the class. So I had this ritual of rushing to class with my books and with my papers, sweating, stopping at Whispers, getting in line with all the students, waiting for my cup of ice, and then going down to my classroom for 2 hours to teach. It worked perfectly for the first 3 or 4 weeks of the semester. So on the 5th week of the semester, I'm going to my class, I stop at Whispers, I get in line with everybody, and everybody's in this 8-minute passing period, and there's a big line, I wait. I get to the front, and the girl says, may I help you? And I say, a cup of ice, please. And she says, cup of ice, yells it over her shoulder, and then she kind of turns and takes the next customer. So I move a little bit to the side, and I'm waiting, and a woman comes around the corner, and she goes, cup of ice, and she sets it on the counter. And I look at it, and it is, no kidding, a Dixie cup with 4 ice cubes in it, maybe 5. Now, previously, I'd always get these monster cups just brimming with ice, and they were perfect, and made it the 2 hours. And that girl just put down the Dixie cup with the 5 ice cubes in it and turned and walked off. And I'm like, a bit paralyzed. And I go, oh, she's gone. So I just interrupt the person. I go, I'm sorry, this is not what I ordered. I need a cup of ice. She goes, that is the cup of ice. I go, well, no, I used to get a big cup of ice. We don't give cups of ice anymore. That's the cup of ice you get. Why can't I get a cup of ice? Well, everybody's stealing soda out of the fountains, so this is the policy. Now, I'm in a tie. I'm in a shirt, like, with all these books. Obviously not a student. I go, do I look like somebody who's going to steal fountain sodas from you? And she goes, sir, I'm sorry. My manager says that's what we give is cups of ice now. That's what you get. I go, come on, you have to be able to make an exception. Now everybody, you can start hearing audible sighs out of everybody in line, right, at this point, okay? And I say, something has to be done. So we go back and forth a couple times. She says, look, I have to ask my manager if I give you a different cup of ice. I go, that sounds excellent. Please ask your manager. So the girl goes, she turns, backs up a smidge, walks past the 4 workers making the coffees and all the sandwiches and stuff, walks around the counter, walks into the seating area of Whispers Cafe, through the seating area, out the front door of the library, and leaves the building. Now, every head in that line of mine was on a swivel following this woman's path. She was the only cashier. And she just left. So all the heads swivel, they watch her leave the building, and then all 20 heads swivel back and look at me. And I'm like, how was I supposed to know she was going to leave? She said she had to ask the manager. I said, please. I didn't know she was going to leave. So I'm suddenly pleading with all these 17-year-olds for like forgiveness. And everybody's just like, you got to be kidding me. And they start like complaining to each other. Well, after what seemed like forever, but probably what was like 90 seconds or something, maybe 2 minutes, she comes back in. Slowly enters, slowly meanders her way through the tables, slowly walks back around behind the workers, comes back to the counter, looks at me and says, "She said no." And I go, oh, you have to be kidding me. She said no? She goes, "She said no." Next. And I go, whoa, wait, I'm sorry, I'm not done. And then the kid's, so I go, "Here's what I want. I want a large Coke. I mean the biggest Coke you've got. I want a lot of ice, and I want no Coke." And she goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, really, that's my order. Large Coke, a lot of ice, no Coke." She goes, "Ah." Then she turns, she says something to the worker comes, they bring something forward, and I give her my card. She goes, "You don't have to pay for that." I go, "No, I'm paying for a large cup of Coke. Okay, charge it." So we do this thing. Finally, I get it. Everybody kind of is like claps. Because I get my stuff, I put my cup on there, and I get my stuff, I start walking, everybody's clapping, I just want to turn, piss off, I just want to yell something at all of them. And I'm like so angry, and it's so late now. So now I start leaving Whispers. Now Whispers has one of these man trap things for reasons I don't understand. A man trap is there's a set of double doors and then a little foyer and then another set of double doors. So I back my way through that first set of double doors, and as I'm turning to go to the next, like these 3 students come busting in, like shoulder to shoulder, and just overtake the space. And they kind of knock me back, and I kind of try to get out of the way. And all of a sudden, that giant cup of ice I just did battle for, like tips. And I go, whoa, and I'm like moving the books, and it tips the other way. And I'm suddenly playing this massive game of Jenga or something with this cup. Everybody in Whispers is watching this kind of cup. And I'm trying to steady it, and then it just slow motion, like lose, and it just tip, and it just falls, and it goes through like 2001 Space Odyssey, and the satellites go through the air, and it's just going, and it hits, and it just explodes when it hits the ground. The lid comes off, and the ice just bursts all over this foyer. And it's just silent. That whole place went silent. Like there's 200 people in there, just dead silent. And I'm looking at my ice, and the people are just walking, I'm like, "What the hell is this dude doing?" And then everybody else is like, "Oh!" I mean, literally hands over mouth, aghast. So I look at the ice, and then I look at the room and everybody looking at me, and I say in my mind, "I'm eating this damn ice." So I crouch down, I get down on my hands and knees, I put my books down, and I start scraping all this ice back into the cup. My tie's grating on the ground, all this, and I scrape all the, and I'm in the corners, I'm getting it all. I'm not leaving a single ice cube in this place. So I get it all, I cap my cup, I stand back up with as much dignity as I have left, which ain't much. And I rush out of there, and I rush downstairs, I head to my classroom, and there's a bathroom on the way to my classroom, and I pop in there, and I go, "I gotta clean my ice, because I can't eat it like that." So I turn on the water, and I put water in there, and I shake it around, and I pour the water out, and I put more water in, and I shake it around, and pour it, and just dirt and grossness is coming out. And then when it's clean, I get a clean pour of water, I look in there, and there are maybe 5 ice cubes. Exactly what I started with. And that's another struggle point for me in the story, that I know there's a moral somewhere in this story, but I don't know what it is. And so I invite your help to both help me name this story and give me a moral at the end of the 5 ice cube adventure. And I would, but that's my story for the day. So thank you for listening, I appreciate it.